nephew came from Oregon on vacation, and he was a non-believer. I said, let's go out one night and do some howls. So we went around the east side of the lake where the gun range is, where you can shoot clay pigeons with your shotguns. It's 12:30 at night, and I gave just a small whoop, and I had an immediate whoop come right back, probably 100 yards away, just as plain as day. That's the best one I've heard. I know there wasn't no people out there. I mean, there was only one house there, and my nephew's like, what was that? I said, that's the only one thing I know of. He goes, I didn't believe in them things. I said, well, you heard one. So one other night we went back to the same spot, and the Lemoyne River's down there to the south of probably a half a mile, and I gave a whoop, and this time I would imagine it was the dominant male pulled back from that bottom, and it was a howl scream that lasted probably 10 seconds. That one made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I mean, it was a long ways away, but you could hear it. You know, it traveled all the way up there. So I think that's the only experience I've had at Argyle. Get a drink. There is more cases on BFRO, and I think I can show you. The one was playing peekaboo. If you can read it on BFR. And he was some kind of primatologist or something, and he named it. Have you read that?
Yeah, I have.
So I think I know where that spot's at. I did find it was about a 17-foot-inch track out there.
Is that the one
I
cast at?
Yeah, I got the cast of it you have now. And it's on a different part of the lake. It was on a trail. I was squirrel hunting in the fall. It's not a very good cast, but it was my first one. But I can take you to that spot and show you where it's at.
And just a note for the record here, we do have the cast in the archives at Western Illinois University. It was donated.
And there's a smaller cast with some dermal ridges also that we found north of Macomb in November.
You had asked the question what dermal ridges are.
That's like the fingerprints
okay.
on your hands and toes.
Okay, thank you.
That track, you can't really see it in that cast, but it was a good track. It was probably 5-6 inches long. I mean, we were bow hunting. There was ice in the water. I can't see anybody down there running around barefooted where we were at.
Yeah, that's who would be out there running around barefoot in cold weather to lend, I guess, credibility to what you found.
And dermal ridges are difficult to fake.
Mm-hmm. And then my son had a woman contact him that she lived in Hancock County, west of 336. She says, we have a family of Sasquatches out there. Can you get your dad and do anything? She says, we've seen them, we've heard them. They howl at night. We're kind of afraid to get out and about. So we went over there, my son and I, set up some cameras and found 3 sets of tracks coming across her backyard. They were kind of melted in the snow, but they had walked in a single file line. And I always heard that they don't, you know, their steps are not offset, they're in a straight line. There's 2 big sets there, and then off to the right of the picture, there's a smaller set. And they kind of all angled and went into the timber together. And that's where the woman had seen them peeking around the trees at her. But she said, we never did get anything on trail cameras or anything like that. Never heard anything. We went down there several times. But her sons were probably high school at the time. They would hear them during the summer down there. We did go down farther into the timber from their house, and it is what I call an old timber. You know, for around here, they're probably the biggest trees around, the oldest. And I thought maybe that had something to do with it. And we never heard any more from her. And then I heard later on she didn't want her name listed. She didn't want to fill out any reports. She wanted to be left alone. But she has moved. I don't know if anybody lives in that house. We got those pictures. You got those, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, because Curtis wears a size 13, and so those tracks are a lot bigger than him, his feet. And then I had a trail cam of my own setting up on hunting ground west of Plymouth in Hancock County. It'd been there about 2 weeks. I had it on a scrape, and I went down there to check it, and my camera was turned around 180 degrees on the tree, flipped inside out where the lens was up against the tree, and had been raised up the tree about 4 feet. I could just barely reach it. I'm 6 foot tall. So I untied it and got it down, and I got to looking, and here's this big clump of hair hanging off the bark where the camera was. And it's long, I don't know what color you'd say that was. Blackish, grayish.
But yeah, that would be a good description for me looking at it.
And on TV, people find, well, here's one little crinkled up hair, and some of these hairs probably a foot long, aren't they?
At least.
But when I seen that one at Argyle, it had long hair. So, I don't know. There's cows in there, but that's no hair off of cows. There's no horses in there or anything else. So, but a couple of years later, my son and I was up there hunting. The first morning he wasn't there, which was opening morning, and I went up on top of the bluff and got in the stand, and it was still pitch black. And probably 500 or 600 yards off to the west, I heard a single wood knock. I thought, well, that's a wood knock. I'll be darned. So, I don't know, 2 minutes later, there was another wood knock just about 50 yards off to me to the south. And shortly after that, I never heard anything. The sun come up and we did our hunting.